Hey all, how you doing today? Um, just kind of finished packing everything away, and a surprising thing has happened to me. Uh, what with the move and everything is suddenly I'm much more introspective. Suddenly I'm finding myself like reassessing what it is I'm doing in the world and what is happening, and it's kind of taking me by surprise a little bit. I thought that I was going to kind of power in to I don't know what. But I've moved and now things have kind of just remained as they are, you know? COVID's still happening. The world is still in this extreme decline. There's still an economic crisis. Everything is still absurd. And I can't help but feel that what we are experiencing as a people now is a spiritual crisis. Just as a warning for everybody going into this, especially new people, right? I do talk about spirituality. I do talk about that sort of stuff. It does get kind of hooby jooby. I really try to keep things entrenched in reality and what we know as reality, and I always attempt to articulate my thoughts in secular language and in secular terms, because I genuinely do believe that the debate that's been happening for the last 40 years, really, with the new atheists and all of this kind of stuff, is a semantic argument more than anything, right? That we live in a quantum energy, right? That's quantum mechanics. We live in a quantum energy that randomly generates us, right? We we don't have a say. We don't give our consent. We just are here. And that quantum energy has erected rules that we must abide by and we must live by, right? Whether it's conscious or not, right? Whether you want to call that the quantum energy God, or whether or not you believe it's just a mechanical dead system, in either case, it has erected rules that we have to abide by. And one of those major rules is that everyone needs to eat. If you don't eat, you die. It's very, very clean. And we're having this really, really all-encompassing spiritual crisis as a people, or existential crisis if you prefer. And it seems that many of us are just delving into, or diving down into despair, are retreating into sadism, and ultimately calling for a kind of return to the void. That inside each and every one of us there is this desire, this call to return to our base state, if you like, or our creator, if you'd like to say it in theological terms, that we all do. It is inevitable that each and every one of us ultimately dies and returns to our base energy, our starting position, right? However you'd like to say it. And because that is an inevitability, we have inside of us this longing for it. We have a longing to reach the moments of our death. And that, I think, is undeniable. It exists in everybody. But that rudders up against our fear of the unknown, right? Which seems to be the only thing that keeps many of us going, is this fear of what's going to exist on the other side. It's that old, like, Hamlet riff, right? To be or not to be. Well, if you actually listen to that speech, the point of it, the end point, is you have a suicidal Hamlet who reaches the end of this speech and basically proclaims that the only reason he isn't committing suicide is because he's scared of what's on the other side, the undiscovered country. And just so you guys know, I'm not suicidal. I feel like I get into these conversations and lots of people start looking at me like, are you okay, John? Do I need to call someone? No, I'm completely fine. It's just, this is discussion that's worth having. Just as right now is a perfect time to remind you to like, share, and subscribe. Patreon's down below, thecanadiancommie.com, thesocialistagenda.com is my podcast. Yeah, hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. You guys know what to do. So, but we're doing this culturally right now, right? We're facing these larger questions of who are we? What are we doing here? What's the point of any of this? Why are we spending all our time doing this? And it's the number one reason why the capitalist class, who does not give a crap about us at all, except outside of the labor that we can do for them. And it's the number one reason why they need to keep us constantly working, right? It's the number one reason why they need to keep us in this frantic, never-ending thrum. It's the number one reason why we have to just keep moving and keep doing. Because if we're given a moment to breathe, to look at one another, and to say, wait a minute, what is it we are here to do? Well, it's certainly not to make money for billionaires, right? Certainly not to make money for people who are worthless parasites, who do absolutely no labor and offer no value to the society whatsoever. I just watched Cody Johnson do some more news on YouTube, worth a watch. He did one on Elon Musk and really points out, like, Elon Musk is worthless. Like, he offers no value whatsoever. And this ambition that he is running off, this whole let's get to Mars ambition, is just a childish pursuit, right? He hasn't actually thought anything through. That he really just wants to go to Mars as an escape from the horrors of what are occurring here on Earth. That Elon Musk is also following that death impulse, is also following the call to the void. Because the problems that exist here on Earth are too insurmountable, he believes. And so he's going to do everything he can to try to escape from those problems, instead of doing anything to solve them. And for a man like Musk, this goes from being some kind of intrinsic psychological thing, as it is for all of us, into something of a mania, right? Like, a man like Musk could do great things to fight against climate change. A man like Musk could pour billions of dollars into fighting against climate change. He chooses not to, right? He chooses instead to fall prey to his own fears and his own psychosis. And he chooses to be crippled by them. He chooses to say, oh, well, Earth is doomed, clearly, and me, the son of an apartheid emerald miner, I certainly can't do anything to prevent it. And so I will do everything I can in order to make the problem worse, so that I can chase this fantasy, this delusional aspiration of getting to Mars, building a new colony, building a new world on Mars. It's this spiritual decay that we're caught in, where we literally cannot seem to contemplate or understand the very basic idea that if we helped one another, if we created systems that just aided one another, that everything would be fine. We can't, as a species, seem to even imagine or understand non-exploitive systems. We can't seem to imagine living in a world where things occur outside of this exploitive relationship that exists within our capitalist structure. And it's having a profound decaying effect on us. Chris Hedges writes a really interesting article about cultural sadism and how cultures who fall into decay as we are falling into decay begin to use sadism as a way to deal with the problems that we're having. I found it to be a really profound article because it's one of the theses of this channel. I think that we have been taken over by a capitalist death cult that is finding a way, instead of attempting to resolve the issues of climate change, instead of attempting to find ways to resolve the issues of wage slavery, they are instead finding ways to enjoy them, right? They are finding ways to find pleasure from the destruction that is being wrought. They are finding ways to, in this kind of self-masturbatorial way, to find pleasure from the torture of others. And a lot of it roots itself in, we'll be dead soon anyway, right? You think of somebody like Joe Biden, who's this old man who must be finding a great deal of pleasure deceiving everyone into believing that, he's just Uncle Joe, while he continues the American terrorism project. It must derive a lot of pleasure in him to be able to deceive people, as he has done throughout his entire career. And he rests assured in the knowledge that, he'll be dead soon anyway, right? So what's it actually matter? Because our lives don't matter, only his life matters, right? Joe Biden doesn't care, just like Elon Musk, just like Bill Gates, just like all these guys, right? They don't care about anyone else. They care about themselves. And they've erected a society that rewards them for that rewards them for thinking that way. And this spiritual crisis that we find ourselves in, should we want to survive as a species, which I should hope that we do, we are going to have to confront this sadistic mania that exists within the capitalist death cult. And we are going to have to say to one another, as people, that each and every one of us is valid. That each and every one of us has been created by the divine energy for its own purpose, or even randomly. And each and every one of us has validity on this plane. That we're not disposable. We're not insignificant. Because if we were insignificant, we would have never been created in the first place. that even if the system is simply randomly generating ideas and patterns and people and creatures and life forms, well, even that system of random generation demands that each life form that is created holds within it its own validity. And because those life forms are created with the same energy and return to the same energy, they are all equal with one another. And if we don't start to pursue life with this attitude, if we don't start to pursue life with this concept, then life will eat us back up. The quantum signature will eat us back up. Happily. We'll think nothing of doing so. And if there ever was a goal, such as the goal of discovery, that perhaps it is the truth that the quantum signature is attempting to discover something about itself, and by doing so has created us in order to explore itself, that if that were the goal of such an energy or a being, that once it eats us back up, it will simply say, well, that was a failure, or the thing I've learned about myself is that I am self-destructive, that it is difficult to create systems that sustain themselves, and that we as humans have erected, like we've literally erected a financial system, like a monetary system that is imaginary, right? Like, the financial system is an imaginary system. It doesn't exist. It could go away, right? At its best, it was originally created as an organizational tool, as a way for just to organize things and keep track of how things happened and unfolded. But now we have elevated this tool, this organizational system, into spiritual heights that our economists are not financiers, they are priests. That they speak a moral doctrine. That if you say to them, shouldn't everyone have food and shelter, as the quantum energy demands that everyone does, well, they will create a way or an ideology, create some dogma or some tract for why it shouldn't be the case. That a system that generates all the food and shelter that a society could possibly need, and then some, why it should still withhold. And it'll use statements like meaning or productivity, but really it's just this continuous call for sadism. It's just this continuous call to the void. That the only way that these wealthy financiers can find any meaning in the systems that they've erected is if they can inflict torture on people. We should fight back. We should push back. We should say that we can create systems that feed and shelter everyone, that alleviate suffering. The capitalist class pretends as though they're interested in alleviating suffering, but it's so blatantly false on the face of it to be an embarrassing statement to make. If you genuinely cared about alleviating suffering, you would stop bombing everyone. You would stop invading countries. You would stop stealing their resources. No. The suffering is the point. That's the point of the capitalist death cult. They're not interested in doing anything except spreading misery and suffering around, because that's what gives them their meaning. That's where their power lies. That's where they find their joy. That's where they feel like God. While the rest of us just have to deal with them. And the deceived among us believe the lies they say. Well, I'm trying to get us to a point where we no longer believe those lies. I no longer believe those lies. And I believe that everything they say is a lie. Men like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, David Thompson. These men are liars. They have to be, to maintain their position of power and privilege. And what they're doing in the world can only be described as evil. And yet, we continue to permit them to do it. We continue to allow them to act the way that they do, and to exploit us and to take advantage of us. Because where they are organized under a financial system, we are disorganized. Our churches have been broken apart. People no longer hold on to the simple faiths, the simple ideas, like everyone should have food and shelter, right? We no longer believe that as a people. This incredibly basic idea that everyone should have food and shelter. And if we are going to return, if we are going to survive, we are going to have to reinvest in the very simple ideas. The very simple ideas. Like everyone should have food and shelter. Okay guys, this is going to be the end of this video. If you've made it to this point, I think you have to like, share, and subscribe. I think those are the rules. I don't make them, I just enforce them. Be sure to go to thecanadiancomedy.com, bookmark that page so that when YouTube takes me down, you have a place to go to find me. Thesocialistagenda.com is where my podcast gets uploaded. Yeah, all that's left to say, guys, is that you are doing wonderfully. We are facing maybe the largest spiritual crisis that the world has ever seen. Like, there have been other spiritual crises that have existed on this plane of existence, but never with climate change looming over, never with nuclear bombs in play. Under these circumstances, you are doing wonderfully. You're doing really well for yourself. You're making good decisions for yourself and for those around you. I know that you're a caring, empathetic person who is trying your best in the world. You are a divine being standing on divine energy. We could use some of it right now. Good luck. We're gonna need it.